Mm. Okay, so on top of Aleph, and just to back up, recap what's happening. So there was a subject about besides by Chumas and Meisters, these things that you have to know which year something belongs to, as far as what kind of Meiser you have to have, Meiser Rishon, or Meiser Sheni, or Meiser Rani, and also even if it's the same kind of Meiser, but you have to give each one for its own year. You can't make 2 years together. So there are two subjects you have to talk about always: what the date is, what the cutoff point is, and also what shlav, how do you say shlav? What stage of development that the plant is. That's kovei. You have to have two ingredients to know where is the plant holding at a certain time. So as far as the time, we had so far 2 dates. We had Aleph Tishrei for Yerakos, and we had Echad, and we had Tu B'Shvat. We passed like a Basil, Tu B'Shvat for trees. And as far as the Shlav Gidul, the Gemara brought down on the previous stuff in the Gimel Lamed Beis that by trees it's Basar Chanata, which is a Machlokes Rishonim what that means. I saw that some Rishonim say it's about a third. It's approximately a third of the growth of the tree. Some say as soon as the blossom falls off and the tree starts growing, that's called Chanata. There are maybe other shitas also. That's called Chanata by a tree, and by Tvua and Zaysim by grain, and by olive. So it's a third of the growth, which is considered like you'd say Machal Ben Drusoid, that it's edible. And by Yerakos it's Basar Lakita. By vegetables, it's according to when you pick it off the ground. We said this also has relevance also to Shemitah, things that you pick before Shemitah, after Shemitah. Okay, that was the subject about. And then the Gemara brought in an issue about something that's Shirashim, sometimes kidneys, legumes, these things, seeds, legumes, they have to do with Hashrasha. The Gemara tried to figure out where does that come from. Well, that's recapping the Yud Gimel Lamed Beis. And the Gemara said that it's Drabanan. And the reason why they made a new thing called Hashrasha is because there are some kind of things that you're going to, the derech of these kidneys is that you pick them a little bit at a time, and it'll be very possible that they'll get mixed up if you do a little bit before, a little bit after. By vegetables, as you pick it, you eat it. But by these things that you pick them and you then make a goren out of it, so you'll have some things that were picked before the cutoff point, and some things that are picked up after the cutoff point, and they'll get mixed up, and then you'll take with Shumas and Maestros, and you'll be taking from last year's on this year's, because there are some in that same pile that are from last year's and before the cutoff point and some after the cutoff point. So therefore they said stay safe a bit and do Basar Hashrasha. So everything is going to be, what do we say, Hashrasha, everything's going to be from last year. Everything's going to be old. And therefore I won't get mixed up. Hashrasha means no, that you go according to the family that they took root, whatever the date's going to be. The date's going to be Aleph Tishrei, so whatever took root before, whatever took root after, that's going to be the Koveya. So that's not going to be confusion of things that were picked before and picked after. After that, the Gemara went into a subject called Bila. Bila means mixing up, which we can call homogenizing, things that are to be evenly distributed. When you take liquids that everybody holds, you take liquids, so it gets evenly distributed and it gets homogenized, we'll call it. And therefore, when you take, even if you had two types of something, but if you mix it together, so you could assume that whenever you take something out, you have equal proportion of each one because they got equally distributed. But by Dabar Yovesh, by solids, that's not so simple. You can take solids and you mix it up. You can have seeds that you had some seeds that were before Rosh Hashanah, some seeds were after Rosh Hashanah. And even though you mix it up, not necessarily did it get homogenized, and we're going to take out a tenth and say this is Meiser. It could be it's not proportionate to what you're taking off Meiser. That's a dangerous thing to do. So the Gemara brought in that subject. The Gemara at the end brought down 3 statements of going to the end, almost up to Daf Yudal already. The Gemara brought down 3 statements of Shmuel. One was that he holds like Rav Shimon Shizuri. Rav Shimon Shizuri was the one who seemed to say Yesh Bila, that there's no problem about things that get mixed up. You could just mix it up, and we'll assume that it got all evenly distributed, and therefore you could be Maaser Mitoch Minei Ubei. You could take off Maaser from the mixed product. That's what she seemed to say. On the other hand, Shmuel said, Ein Bila, that is no, we don't consider that it gets evenly homogenized only by liquids, but by solids you don't say that. It seems to be a contradiction already. And the third thing Shmuel said was, Hakol Lechacha Gemar Pri, a new sheet we never heard of, that by legumes and these things, even though the Mishnah says that you go with Hashrasha, he says there's some opinion, and Rashi says he doesn't know where he got it from. The Rishonim have difficulty finding out who Shmuel hold like. The Mishnah says that you go with Hashrasha, and he says you go Basar Gemar Pri, you go according to when it was finished being developed, and you don't go according to when it was picked. And therefore, the Gemara says that that's how to reconcile Shmuel's opinion, that even though he holds Ein Bila, he holds that you don't consider that it gets evenly homogenized. But he's not concerned with the whole thing because he says that you go with the Gemara Pri, so everything is going to be, call it from the new year. everything Rashi calls chadash. It's not, if you hold that, it's going to go basar lakita. So then some things could be from last year, some things from this year, and it got mixed up. Now you have a problem if it was marginalized or not. But if you hold that everything goes with Gemara Pri, then you're safe because everything develops uniformly. Everything gets together, so there's no issue. And now the Gemara is really going to explain what we just said. And top line.
Excuse me, Rebbe. I got distracted for a moment. We're not seeing the daf. Did you mention that, or do you know that?
I'm saying. I'm sorry. Can you say it again, please?
We do not see the daf.
Thank you. You should be seeing it. I don't understand.
No, we see a page that says downloads Hebrew books, PDF document.
Try again. Okay, I got something wrong then. Let's stop sharing. I'm sharing the wrong thing then. Try again. Then I thought probably. Okay, we didn't yet. Now it's on.
We're waiting for it to appear. Yes, here it is. Thank you.
Okay. So all that was introduction, and now we're on the top line. Utzricha. We need the three statements of Shmuel. Shmuel said three things. One thing was the halachas like Shimon Shazuri. Shimon Shazuri said even if things get mixed up, it's okay because it's evenly homogenized, and you can take off Meiser from that mixture, and you can assume that it's proportionate to the rest of whatever is being taken Meiser on. You take, let's say, you take off a tenth or 100th, whatever you're taking off. So you could assume that whatever you took off is equal proportion ratio of what you have to take off because everything got evenly distributed.
Are they the same type? They have to be the same soup, or they are from the same?
We're talking about things that might have been from before Rosh Hashanah, after Rosh Hashanah. You have legumes, whatever, and you picked some of them before Rosh Hashanah, some of them after Rosh Hashanah. And if the halacha would be that that's going to be the or Hashrasha before, Mishrash before, Mashrash after, whatever the case would have been. So you have a mixture of two different years, and you're not allowed to be Maaseh one on the other.
Why would it help you be that? How would it help you?
Because when you mix it, everything gets equally proportionally distributed. And now when I take off a tenth or 100th, whatever I take off, I could assume that I have the same ratio of what I took off to what is left over. I have to take 1 out of 100. So I took, let's say 1 out of 100, whatever that's going to be. There's no 2 out of 100, whatever I'm going to take, Truma, Meiser. So whenever I take off the Truma and the Meiser, it's going to be equally proportionate to whatever I'm taking off on. So that Yashan is going to be on the Yashan, the Chadash is going to be on the Chadash. The only problem is going to be if it's not proportionate. So then I took off more of last year's, and I'm saying it's going on this year's. But if you say this equally distributed, so that even though it's a mixture of two things that I last year's and this year's, but if you say Yesh Bila, if you say that it got equally distributed, that's okay because I take off Meiser, and I could say that the ratio of what I need of the old year is in the old year, whatever's in the new year is the new year. Am I making sense?
I think so. Just like you, but isn't that the problem is that you're not allowed to do you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to take. I'm not allowed. Yeah, I'm not because if it got mixed up and I mix it up well and I blend it all together and now I take out a tenth. What did I get a tenth out of?
I don't know. It's a mixture.
I do no. If you say that it's marginalized, then I do know what it is. It's a tenth of the new and the old on the old. Let's say I had 80% and 20%. 80% of the new, 20% of the old. Okay. I mix it all up and I take out an amount. I could assume that it's 80% of this and 20% of that because it's equally homogenized. So I got everything right. Right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to put that you're not allowed to do last year's this year or this year.
That's what we're saying. You're not doing last year's and this year's, but you shouldn't have gotten mixed up. But you got mixed up and I got all mixed up. Now that I equally homogenize it, so I'm okay because I could take off Trumas and Meiser and I'm taking off equal proportion of the old on the old and the new on the new. We'll do it later on with a visual.
Now that I'll give it out to the Levay or Kohen or Levi or whatever I'm giving out, is it not a problem that they're from 2 different years? That's not.
No.
Not a problem.
No. Okay, I'll maybe later on we'll do it again. Okay, but after this year we'll do it a little bit more. Okay. So the Gemara is going to say that Shmuel said 3 things. One is that it doesn't make a difference even if it got mixed, even if it got mixed up from last year's and this year's. It's not a problem. That's one thing he said. Another thing he says is Ein Bila. You don't consider it equally homogenized, which seems to contradict each other. And the third thing was that you go with Gemara Pri. You don't go after the Shiurim, which might get you confused from last year and this year because everything's the same year. If you go according to the Gemara Pri, when the thing gets right, everything gets right uniformly. They all get the same time. If it will be something about like the Gemara said before, Lakita. Lakita could make some were pricked earlier, some were pricked later. By Hashrasha, the Gemara even said a case that some things might have been taken root from a different crop different times. But they say there's no problem. Everything is according to the Gemara Pri. Everything ripened uniformly, and therefore it's all the new. It's all the same time. There's no don't need bila for this. So that's what I was going to say now. Top line, if you only would have said halacha kev Shimon Chazuri, would have taken it literally. Shimon Chazuri says that even though there is a mixture of two different, the old and the new, but the fact that you mixed it up, you could assume that it got evenly distributed, and that's why it's okay. So you have to tell, kamash shmuel ein bila. So Shmuel has to say a second statement that it ain't bila, that doesn't get equally distributed. If you just would have said ein bila, he would have thought that it sounds like there are two different shurim that might be confused from last year's and this year's, and there's no way to fix it up because ein bila means that it doesn't get equally distributed. That there is a way to get out of the problem by taking off meiser. You could take off the meiser, but it comes out that he passes like Shimon Chazuri, as Rashi says, v'lo mitamei. He passes like him, but not for his reasoning. Shimon Chazuri says it's okay because even though you have last year's and this year's mixed up together, but Yesh Bila makes that it got evenly distributed, and now I'm taking it proportionately. And Shmuel says no, really ain't Bila. The reason why you can take off meiser is because it it's all the same year because you go according to the Gemara Pri and it all ripened uniformly. If I only would have said those two statements, I wouldn't have known how to reconcile the two statements. It sounds like contradiction. That's why he told us the third statement that says that the koveya, for which year it belongs to, is according to the ripening of the fruit, and that's the way it's reconciled the other two statements. Why doesn't he just say I would think that everything goes out kakol, everything goes after Gemara Pri, even grain and olives over there. It's not true. But there he also passes that doesn't go according to the Gemara Pri, it goes according to a third. A third is considered already good enough to be considered which year it's nikva after. That he only holds like a Shimon Chazuri. The issue he's talking about legumes, like tvua, kitnius and zeruam over there. He says that you could mix it up together. So why can you mix it up together? Because Shmuel holds that the koveya for these things is going to be Gemara Pri. He passes like Shmuel that you go with the Gemara Pri, even though it's against the Mishnah. Rashi says he doesn't know where Shmuel comes from. Where's he coming from? He's arguing on the Mishnah, so we leave it to the Rishonim to figure out. But the Gemara says that Shmuel argues and says that you go according to the Gemara Pri. He had a source of someplace, and that's the halacha that you go by kitnius and zeruim, by legumes and seeds. You go according to the time that it's ripens. That's the koveya.
So the confusing word here is then hakol, correct?
Yeah, right. That might have misled us to think that everything, and really, it just means to say, in the issue we're talking about, hakol halacha Gemara Pri, and the subject we're talking about, which is of Shimon Chazuri, about tvua and kitnius. And one more line before we finish the sugya. V'lashmina and hani tarti la'akol ein bila lamali. So if he would have said the other two statements, he would have said the halacha is like a Shimon Chazuri and halacha halacha Gemara Pri. We would have been able to write from that also that he doesn't hold like a Shimon Chazuri. We would have figured out that he holds ein bila because he wouldn't have to say hakol halacha Gemara Pri if he would have held like a Shimon Chazuri literally. So we could have figured out also that he holds ein bila. You're right. We would have figured out that he holds ein bila. But the Chiddush wanted to tell us was that by liquids, we do say it gets homogenized. If you have solids like seeds or legumes that got mixed up and you mix it as much as you want, we're still choshish that it didn't get equally distributed. And you'll have some of last year's, a different proportion of last year's and this year's. If you're going to take out a tenth, you're going to get not the same proportion as the chulin that you have to take it out on. But by liquids, you do say yesh bila. Liquids do get equally distributed. I guess the word is homogenized. I'm saying the word homogenized, maybe I'm my English, but that's that. I mean to say evenly distributed. Yes, please.
What is the ben mai depligue? Where does that go? Is that the end of a sentence or the beginning of a sentence?
It's the end of the
Kamash
sentence.
Malan.
Allah Shimon Chazuri my depligue. That he yells like we pass like a Shimon Chazuri in the issue that he's talking about. And the issue that they're talking about over there is talking about
the kitnios.
Yes, he says yesh bila ein bila, but they're talking about a certain subject over there. The question was over there about kitnius and zeruim, by legumes and seeds. That's where he said that it's okay to mix it up and take off meiser from it itself. So over there we pass like Shimon Chazuri v'lo mitamei, not for his reasoning. He holds yesh bila, we hold ein bila, but that's how you read it. That looks like Shimon Chazuri and the issue that they were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last question was, you don't have to say ein bila. The answer is you're right. You just have to say ein bila, except for yain b'shemen. By liquids, we do say yesh bila. That's the end of that sugya. I hope that it was good. And that comes out, we hold ein bila. We hold that we don't, by yavesh, by things that are dry goods, like legumes, kitnius, even if you mix it up, we don't assume that it was equally distributed. By liquids, we do say yesh bila. Liquids do get homogenized well. It seems we pass like Shmuel, that by kitnius and zeruim, the koveya is the Gemara Pri, the time that it gets fully ripe, that's the time that's Koveya, which year it belongs to. If that's good, we're ready to go further. Tanya Rav Yossi Baglili Omer. This is going to be the din that tells you the issue that how do we know that Yerakos are different than Tvua? Means that Tvua, what we say is Dagan Tira Shvi Yitzar. With the Raisa, there's Meiser on grain and wine and oil. And over there we said that the shlav is going to be, it goes according to either by trees. We said, what do we say? Tvua v'zeisim. We said that it goes according to a shlish, according to a third. And now we're going to say that there are things that you go basalakita. Yeah, I'm sorry. Over there we go basachanata or shlish, right? Either one of them. And here we're going basalakita. We said a few times already the Mishnah number and by Yerakos we go basar lakita. By Yerakos, that's the Mishnah and Dambez and Manal. We mentioned it a long time ago at the beginning of Masechta. By vegetables, the year that it's attributed to is the year that you picked it, the time that you picked it, both for Meiser and also for Shemitah this year. If you picked it before Rosh Hashanah, after Rosh Hashanah, and here the Gemara tells the drasha. Tanya Rav Yosef Lili Omer. It says when you gather from your goren, that's the granary, and that's going to be grain, and mikvecha is the wine from your vats. Ma goren v'yekav miyuchadim shekdelim al mei shana shavra u'masasmin l'shana shavra. Av kol shekdelim al mei shana shavra u'masasmin l'shana shavra. Yatsu Yerako shekdelim al mei shana haba, and therefore masasmin l'shana haba. So going the mice are going after last year. The more use the terminology of last year or this year. Last year means the year before was picked, which means you go according to Chanata. Call it Chanata, or you can call it the Shlish, whatever the halacha is going to be, but something doesn't have to do with Lakita. And the Gemara is saying that the source of the halacha that Yerakos are different is because Yerakos have something inherently different than grain and olives. The two of his days. You're right. Wine. Like I said about you, because they grow on last year's water. It means that whenever the raining season is over, that's not the time that the grapes and the grain come out. They come out much later, into the summer, and they're growing on last year's water. It means when you're picking, let's say grain, the harvest season, not harvest season, the reaping season, the Zman Katzir is Sivan. Sivan is when you cut down the tvua. In Nisan, the barley, and Sivan, most times, Kitzir Chitim. So it didn't rain until now. It finished raining a long time ago. The raining season was over already in the Nisan time. And now in Sivan, just to give an example, just to show how, and the grapes go in Tishrei. And the raining season was over in Shvat, Adar. When is the raining season over? So you see that when it grows on last year's water. Shenke Yerakos, they grow on this year's water. It means that as you water it, it absorbs it in. It grows. It's growing on this year's. The Moed talks about and cut on that on Chol Hamoed. Also, you're allowed to water the vegetables that you're going to eat because the water you want to pick it up on Chol Hamoed. You're watering it, and you're going to pick it soon, right during these 4 days of Chol Hamoed. That the water that you put into vegetables right away takes an effect. It gets absorbed. It grows on that. That's called. But it's only because it helps for now. If it would help for another 3 weeks, you wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be allowed to do it. But not than the Yerakos, that means on Chol Hamoed, you allowed to water the vegetables that you're going to be eating because the water takes immediate effect. Mashenkein, on these things, the water is last year's water. So here it says that just like Goren V'Yekev is Yuchad, it's unique in the fact that it's growing on last year's water. So that therefore it goes according to last year's Meiser. It means that the Chanata means that that's the Koveya for what shlav, what stage of growth is because it's growing on last year's water. So therefore the Chanata, let's say, or the third, that all attributes to last year. But so too, only those things that grow on last year's water are the ones that the Meiser is last year. But that therefore we learn out that Yerakos are different. Since Yerakos that the vegetables they grow on the water past that cutoff date, whatever the cutoff date is going to be. Let's say it's Aleph Tishrei or whatever we're going to talk. So the cutoff date is the rain, the water that's helping it to grow is after the cutoff date. So therefore, it's different than Dagan Tivish V'Yitzar, and therefore Masasmin L'Shana Abba. Therefore, the Meiser goes according to now. What does that mean? You go Basalakita. This is the source that we're learning out that Yerakos are different, that you don't go Basachanata or Basashlish, but you go according to when you pick it, because it grows on this year's water, not on last year's water.
That's the reason. Now we see a reason for that.
That's the reason. This is also the source. It's the source. The source that we learn out is because it's not similar to Dagan Tivish V'Yitzar. Dagan the Tirosh the Garner Chom Yikvecha, the reason why it goes according to last year's water is because that's when it grows. It grows on last year's water. But therefore, your rockers, which are different, and it grows on this year's water, so it's mistaber that this year is going to be different. It's going to go basa lakita. It's not going to go basa chanata. Rabbi Akiva is almost the same, but a little different nusach, a little different version of saying the same thing. And the Gemara is going to find an afkamina. That was our verse till now. Rabbi Akiva Omer, also the same pasuk he's talking about, that it's meiser is from the rice is going to be garn v'yakev, grain and wine. Garn v'yakev miyuchadin shegedelen al rov mayim. Or mesasim l'shana shavra. Of course, shegedelen al rov mayim mesasim l'shana shavra. You'll see roka shegedelen al kol mayim or mesasim l'shana haba. So it's almost the same word for word, but instead of saying shegedelen, what did he say? Shegedelen al shana shavra. Al mayim shel shana shavra. He says al rov mayim, and not shana. He doesn't say gedelen al mayim shel of this year, but he says that it goes al rov mayim, al kol mayim. Yerokos the G'day al kol mayim. There's rov mayim and kol mayim. Rashi says that the words are difficult to me, but Rashi says that rov mayim means rainwater, and kol mayim means that you irrigated it yourself. That Goren and the Yaakov, they don't need you to water it; they go on the rainwater alone, which is another way of saying more or less it's the same thing as saying that it's in last year's water. But vegetables, it's not enough to have just the rainwater; you have to actually water it also. And that's another way of saying that it needs water constantly. It's not enough to go on the rainwater. You have to constantly irrigate it until you pick it. So that's the reason why it goes different than Dagan V'Yitzor, Dagan Tirosh, that it doesn't go according to the year of Chanata, it goes according to the year of Lakita. So more or less it's the same thing, but the terminology was different. He said that it has to do, if it's Den al Rov Mayim, well, he said that it has to do with the Shmei Shana Shavra. And the more asked, why Benayu, what is the difference? And the more difference is going to be things that they might be Yerokos, but you stopped watering them, and they actually are still living off last year's water. Usually Yerokos, you constantly water it till you pick it off.
Like potatoes and carrots. And
so he says like two examples of V'Salom Masrisim or Pola Mitzri, and it says here that Shemona Mehem Mayim Shloshim Yom. It seems that there's these types of fruit, certain kind, not fruit, vegetables that V'Salom Masrisim, some kind of an onion, and some explain that you could water it constantly if you want to. You get one type of an onion, but there's a reason why they want to dafka get it dried, and they stop watering it for 30 days before they pick it, 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. So he says that it changes. So I'll say what I think. Rashi has two pshatim over here. I'm not sure if I'm saying either pshat, but I'm just going to try to say the words. That the difference between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Akiva, both of them have the same yesod, but one of them says it has to do with the physical facts. Did it get water from this year, or did it get water from last year? And the other one says it has to do with the type of food. Is it a type of food which usually goes with last year's water, or goes with the constant watering until you pick it? So if it has to do with the with the type of food, so then we'll say that this is a yerek, which usually goes until you pick it. So then we'll say that even though you personally didn't water it for the past 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, but still it's a kind of a food which is different than tfuah and tirosh, and it goes according to the time you pick it. But if you hold it has to do with the physical point, where did it get water from? It's got water from last year. Does it have to do with the type, with the min, with the sug, or it has to do with the physical facts, which water is it living off? If you happen to hold back the water for the past 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, so the water, it didn't get the water from this, it's living off last year's water. So then it goes according to the chanata, to the shear that has to do with the dagon, the shlish, whatever it's going to be. But if you hold that has to do according to the category, it's a category of vegetables, and vegetables usually are watered constantly until you pick it off, and that's going to go according to Kita. More or less, that's a possible pshat in the Gemara. Rashi has two pshatim that say the exact opposite. Who holds what? The Gemara doesn't say who holds what. The Gemara says this is going to be the nafkamina, that if you have B'Tsalim Masrisim will Pula Mitzri, by the way, is string beans. That's how Rashi translates that. Pula Mitzri is string beans. Rashi brings the word, whatever the word in Rashi is. What does Rashi say? Fizio or something like that. Fazio. Where's Rashi? Fazuli. So in English, it's it's the same thing. Phaseolus. And they translate that as string beans in plain English. It's called string beans. There are other some pshatim saying kidney beans, lima beans, but the translation in the dictionary for this thing is and harakat. Somebody say harakat beans, string beans. So pula mitzri. If ever you have string beans on the table, you could say to your family, "This is pula mitzri." So there are a lot of mishnayos about pula mitzri. So to know that as string beans sounds a lot. It brings it back into our world again. It's not something. Well, I just wrote over here. Rashi says fazoli, so fazioli. So some say. No,
It's
no,
almost a recent, no?
I think, no, by polemic street, the last narrow line. Min Kitnius, Pazuli. That's Faziolas. Yeah, and Gimel Amud Beis, the last narrow line. And that's Yud Gimel Amud Beis, the last narrow line. That's okay. So so string means anyway. So it says here, Shemona man Mayim Shloshim Yom L'Tnei Rosh Hashanah. If you held back from watering it 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, V'sasum L'Shavar U'Matorn B'Shvius. That it goes according to last year, even though it's call it a Yerek or something that should go according to this year. But no, V'sasum L'Shavar goes with last year. Matorn B'Shvius. If even though it was Shvius is after Rosh Hashanah, but this goes according to last year. If not, if you did not hold back the water, so then it goes according to the Lakita, and if you picked it in Shvius, so then it's going to be considered a vegetable, and it is going to be Asr on Shvius, because you go like a year, it goes according to Lakita.
So you could actually change the sub, which generally is by Lakita, by
right, but
the other pula.
It's like holding back the water.
Like the Yekiv and
right, but that the Gemara is saying it depends on this machlokes. The Gemara doesn't say it. The Gemara says this mission is only according to one of the Tanam. Rabbi Kiva, you're saying they had two nischos over here. Do you go according to Shana Shav, Maim Shana Shav, or do you go according to Rov Maim? Rov Maim seems to be that it goes according to the Sug. What type is it? Even if you happen to hold back water, but the Maisa, the Sug, is called the Yerek. Mashen Kane, if you say that it goes according to Maim of Shana Shav or this or Maim of this year, if you happen to have held back the water, so it's not getting this year's water, it's getting last year's water. So that might be a pshat in the Gemara. Rashi has two opposing pshatim, so I just said one of them, I think that it reads in the Gemara well. The next Gemara talks about how do you know?
I just want to tell you, last Rashi and my Gemara.
Yeah.
Shuit.
Again, shuit. That's in Hebrew today for string beans.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to buy string beans, you go to the soyas for shuit. I'll give you string beans. Okay.
Not beans in general.
I think shuit is the string beans, but as far as Rashi goes, this they say harakat beans, so it's string beans balas. Okay. Echav b'shvat. Now we're going into the point that by Shammai says first of Shvat we pass like Basil, two B'Shvat, that for trees the cutoff point. We're talking about a couple of subjects, two subjects mainly. One is what is the stage of development, that's the Koveya, and what's the date, what's the cutoff date. You have to know two things in order to know when is the cutoff thing. You have to know the date and also what stage at what day. Okay, so here we go. Echav b'Shvat, we said that it's going to be Chanata. If the Chanata was before Tu B'Shvat or Chanata was after Tu B'Shvat. My time, how come we don't say that it's Rosh Hashanah is like till now? We said Rosh Hashanah is the first of Tishrei. For everything else, we said that the first of Tishrei. We had different stages of development, maybe a Shlish, maybe what else did we say? Chanata. But whatever we say, or by Yerokos also we said Lakita, but whatever it is, the cutoff point is going to be Rosh Hashanah. Here, by trees, besides saying that it goes Basa Chanata, we're also saying that the cutoff date is a different date. Instead of being Aleph Tishrei, it's going to be Tu B'Shvat. What happened? Why should it be different? My time. Amr Belazar, Amr B'Shai, Yehol V'Yatsu Rov Gishmei Shana, V'Adayin Rov Tkufa Mibachutz. So I got a little wrong. Not what we said before, why it's different. There was a drasha before that the Gemara said why it's different than why trees. I have to look at that before. That was a couple of pages ago. That was the Gemara on Daf Yud. The Gemara over there said that it says 3 years is Orla and Vashana Revius. And Revius is not the Revoy, Vashana Chamishis on that Daf Yud. So over there, the Gemara just proved that it's not going to be Aleph Tishrei, it's going to go, that's what the Gemara said, that has to be longer than Aleph Tishrei. Tishrei still could go into Tishrei and it can still be Arelam. It still could be Orla, even though you pass the Tishrei point. And also could go from the 4th year into the 5th year, and it's still considered the 4th year. So that the Gemara is not telling, when the Gemara says my time over here, the Gemara is not saying why is it different. That I made a mistake. That the Gemara told us already in Daf Yud. Why is it different? Because it is Rush over there says Shalosh Shanim Yolach Harelim or Bashana Revius. So that's how we know that it's not going to be Aleph Tishrei. But here what the Gemara is asking is, okay, it's not Tishrei. So what is it? How do you know when it is? You just know it's not Tishrei. So when is it? So the Gemara is going to say as far what Tu B'Shvat is supposed to be. Either Aleph Shvat or Tu B'Shvat. What is that date supposed to be? Where does he get that date from? Amr Belazar, Amr B'Shai, Yehol V'Yatsu Rov Gishmei Shana. That most of the rains are finished already by Tu B'Shvat. That's the reason why Tu B'Shvat, I guess it goes according to the rains. When does the rain season start? So by halfway through Shvat, most of the rains have finished already. And now it says here, Adayin Rov Tkufa Mibuchotz. The word Kufa seems to be the seasons, and it seems the Gemara is going to say soon about or that's what Rashi says, it means the Tkufas Teves. Rashi has a Girsa, even Tkufas Teves. I don't know if Rashi is saying a Girsa change or he's saying that's explaining it, that it means Tkufas Teves. So Tkufas Teves, Rashi.
Oh, the next Rashi, my comments. The guy who Tkufas Mibuchotz.
You see three lines from the bottom in the Dibur. Vadayin lo Tkufas Teves Mibachutz.
No.
That's the word. He says Teves. He says Tkufas Teves.
Oh, Rashi is a gear.
That Eid is a gear, so maybe it shouldn't be bold. It should be maybe this explanation, but it says Tkufas Teves. So the words say that once most of the rains of the year have finished, it rained already. Most of the rains. Vadayin lo Tkufas Mibachutz. That most of Tkufas Teves is still not. It's still not happened. We didn't pass by. We didn't get Rov of the Tkufa. Rov of the Tkufa is still Bechutz means that it hasn't come yet. It's still in the future. The Gemara asks, "My come, what do the words mean to say?" It seems to say that Rov Tkufa mi Bechutz is the reason why it should be over. On the contrary, if Rov Tkufa, Rov of the Tkufa, maybe I'm not explaining. The word Tkufa Steves is that there's 4 seasons, right? And we have spring, summer, autumn, winter.
Winter.
Autumn is fall, whatever, and then winter. So in Hebrew, there's going to be Tkufas Nisan, and then everyone has 3 months. Nisan, and then Tkufas Tammuz, and then Tkufas Tishrei, and Tkufas Teves. Those are the 4 seasons. So here it seems to say that even if Rov of the Tkufa still has not happened yet, I think it has something to do with the next thing we're going to learn tomorrow, something about the solar year and the lunar year are not always aligned together. And sometimes it might be that most of the rains have already passed, but still most of the winter is outside. So Tkufas Teves. Tkufas Teves is still, Rov of Tkufas Teves didn't pass by yet. So, surely not. You have Tu B'Shvat is still that Rov Tkufas Teves, Shvat, and Adar, right? That's going to be 3 months. So it could be that. So Teves, Shvat. It happens to be that. We'll have to see. But when Tkufas Teves will be Teves, Shvat, and Adar. So Shvat is halfway through. But here it says that even if Tkufas Teves, most of the winter season is didn't happen yet. It's still B'Chutz. It hasn't happened yet. It's still in the future. The Gemara says right away, Micah, what do these words mean to say? That the Rov Tkufa didn't happen yet. That's the reason why it's considered the cutoff point. That's not a reason why it should be considered the cutoff point. On the contrary, the fact that the winter did not pass by yet, so it should be a reason why it's not the cutoff point. Why is that a reason? So the Gemara says you're right. Hachikama, Afalpi, put in the word Afalpi, not because, but Afalpi. Afalpi should Rov Tkufa mi b'chutz. Of Yatzurov Gishmei. Since most of the rain passed, even though not most of the winter passed it, that's still a reason why the cutoff point is Tu B'Shvat, because that's when most of the rainy season is over already. So most of the rain came in of this year. This year's rains, most of it came in by Tu B'Shvat, even though most of the winter is not over yet.
Rebbe, there's a helpful rock that starts on the 3rd line from the bottom in the rock, about 5-6 words in.
If you can tell me, okay, I can't look at it now, but I'll have to wait till afterwards.
Yardu mi test mi Yud Zayin Mar Cheshvan Ad Sof Nisan, and then he goes into being Mavar, the Tekufa that you just explained about Tevis. Okay.
You think that the rainy season starts? When does the rainy season start? So that's the Gemara in Tainus talks about either
Quotes it.
Cheshvan, Zayin Cheshvan, Yud Zayin Cheshvan, when they started making Tanesim if it didn't rain. So Yud Zayin Cheshvan might be the beginning of the rainy season, and you're saying that from Yud Zayin Cheshvan until Tu B'Shvat, that might have been most of the rains, even though as far as the winter goes, Teves Shvat Adar, it's still not. It's even if most of the winter is not over yet. But that's
He says
the reason.
Adar and Mixas mi. Okay, Vinisa, that doesn't fit. Yeah, okay. You'll see it. It's the last 3 lines of rock.
Okay, thank you. So more or less, the Gemara is going to tell us the reason why Tu B'Shvat is the cutoff point. Has something to do with that by Tu B'Shvat, most of the rains are over.
It's very helpful. Rashi says 4 lines from the bottom. It says, "Let's arrive b'sham far over right by myself sham shoes man revia, but all of hasraf bilonais nimsva paris chointin miato." That the
Chanata happens is talui. The whatever Chanata means, it's dependent on the rain. And once most of the rain is over, so the Chanata happens.
The sraf goes up.
Okay, so that term of the sap going up, which you talk about, it's from Rashi. The Gemara doesn't say that.
Right.
Rashi is the one who says that the sap goes up on the tree. Other Rishonim have a different shab what Chanata means, whatever Chanata means. But the Chanata, the Gemara says the Chanata is dependent on most of the rains, and once most of the rains are over, that's the reason why we make Tu B'Shvat. Okay, this is a new subject, which might be much easier now. Rabbi Akiva took a esrog off the tree. That's likita. He took a esrog off the tree on the 1st of Shvat. So what is the year of Meiser? Is it last year's Meiser or is it the coming year's Meiser? So that's to recall that if we had machlokes in the Mishnah by trees, what is the cutoff point? Is it the 1st of Shvat, Beishamai, or is it the 15th of Shvat? So in this case, if you take an esrog off the tree, the question is esrog is a tree. Okay, let's assume esrog is a tree. The question is going to be leakage. Was leakage have to do with anything? But that's what the more is going to talk about. That esrog is not like regular tree. It might in some ways be considered like a vegetable. So that's going to be the subject. But just to point out, the Echad Shvat is the time when there's a machlokes b'Shamai b'Silo. According to Beishamai, the new year starts of the trees. The Rosh Hashanah Leilanos, according to Beishamai, is the first of Shvat. According to Beisilo, it's 15th of Shvat. So this date of taking a fruit off the tree between the first of Shvat and 15th of Shvat, you're getting more than machlokes. It seems to say that Rebbe Kiva, he had an esrog from a tree, and he took it on the first of Shvat, and he nagbo shnei yisurin. He was machmir the ma'aser of last year. It seems to say that he was machmir two chumras. That he said, I'm not sure if it's last year's or this year's. Echad, as we go on to the next page. Is that the next page? I'm saying, do I have here? What do I have over here? Which over here? 1 second, please. I'm trying to find it on. Take a skin to go back on. What stuff do I have here? I can't see my document.
Right now, we would be talking about one esrog. So this wasn't for any kind of a mitzvah. He was going to eat it or something, right?
Okay, but I got it. I'm sorry, let me back up it in here. I just want to put it on the screen that we can get on again together. 1 second, please. What am I doing here? Yeah. What did you say, please?
That this isn't for any kind of a mitzvah on Sukkot. He was doing this probably to eat it or something, and he's going to take the meiser from this one piece of fruit.
Yeah, we're used to an esrog only as a Sukkot fruit. Esrog is a food. Esrog is a food. It has very nice.
He was going to meiser this one fruit, but
he took a fruit, an esrog tree, fruit off the esrog tree. He took an esrog off the esrog tree, and the question was which year of meiser it is, and he made a chumrah. That means he said, considered maybe it's the New Year's meiser, whatever the year would have been, between the second and the third and the fourth. And he said that maybe it's like Beishamai, that it's the New Year. Maybe it's like Beisil, that it's last year because it's not Tu B'Shvat. That's interesting that it was marked like.
You're going to cut off 2/10 of his fruit. How's he going to use it for his Abba Minim?
No Abba Minim here. It's Shvat over here. He's not using it for Abba Minim. He's past all that. He's just wants to eat it.
Besides that, and besides the first day you cut off.
Also true. Okay. Anyway, this was about nothing about we see esrog, we think sukkahs. The esrog is the fruit, yeah. Okay. He says no, that wasn't the story. It wasn't that he was choshish b'shama v'yisrael. He was choshish between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. What's that all about? That the Gemara is going to bring now machlokes if the esrog is considered a tree or not. We're considered telling that maybe it's a tree. If it's a tree, so then Echad B'Shvat or the first Tu B'Shvat. But if we're not so sure that it's a tree, maybe it's considered a vegetable. Why should it be considered a vegetable? It's questionable because maybe esrog takes a lot of water, just like we said vegetables that as soon as you water it affects it. I think today they call our esrogim, I call this esrogim mayim, because right before Sukkot they flood it with water and it gets very bloated up, and that's why after 2 weeks it mama shrinks because it's very artificial. It's just that it got loaded up with the water as right before Sukkot in order to make it beautiful. But anyway, that's a question why maybe an esrog might be considered not a regular tree. So here, this is machlokes. And the Gemara says we're using why he was machmer, not because maybe Beisilo, really for sure Beisilo, but he was choshish. Was it a tree or was it a yerek? Do you go basachanata? Do you go basalakita? If you go basachanata, it's last year's. If you go basalakita, it's this year's. That was the base of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion argument on Tanakama. That it was not a question of Beishamai Beisilo, but it was a question of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. What's that all about? The Tanan on the fourth line. That esrog is similar to a tree in 3 ways, and it's similar to a vegetable in 1 way. What is that? It's similar to a tree that has din of orla. If it will be a yerek, there's no din of orla only on a fruit tree. So it is considered a fruit tree as far as chayv and orla. It's chayv and revoy, which is the 4th year olds. 4th year olds you're not allowed to eat it. You have to take it to Yerushalayim or redeem it, take the money to Yerushalayim and eat it over there. And shvius means that. To determine which year of Shvius it belongs to, also you go like a tree, that you go basachanata to decide which year it belongs to. But the Yerek B'derech HaChot Shebeshas L'Kitas Yisura, Rabbi Gamliel says that as far as Meiser goes, to know which year of Meiser it belongs to, that you go according to when it was picked. L'Kitas Shebeshas L'Kitas Yisura. So Rabbi Gamliel holds that a esrog tree is like as far
pick it like vegetable.
right. That as far as which year esrog esrog tree, the esrog fruit belongs to, as far as Meiser, is when you picked it off the tree. But Rabbi Eliezer argues and says, no, that esrog is a tree. Esrog shavel ilan l'chol davar. Even as far as Meiser also, it's like a tree that it goes according to the Chanata. So the point of Rabbi Akiva being machmer is not because he's choshev Beis Shammai. He surely holds like Beis Hillel, but he's not sure, is it a tree or is it a york? You go according to Chanata, those last years. Both of them were before Tu B'Shvat, we'll say, that, both of them, what I mean to say, that it happened, that Chanata was before Tu B'Shvat. It means he didn't have any tzad that you go with the first of Shvat. He doesn't know like Beis Shammai. He holds you go with Tu B'Shvat. But the question is, you go with Chanata. The Chanata was before Tu B'Shvat, but he picked it off the tree after Tu B'Shvat. So that's why he had two Meiseres. The suffix was not between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The suffix was between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. That was the Bryce. We had two opinions. First of all, the Gemara was very surprised that he had such a chumrah. Whatever the chumrah would have been, or may have din kishrei chumri, you do two chumras. It's not smart to do two chumras. But Tanya, two chumras that contradict each other. It means over here, which is the Rosh Hashanah? Whatever you're going to say, whatever Shvat we said, let's say B'Shami Beis Hillel, is it the first of Shvat? Is it the 15th of Shvat? Whatever it is, only one of them. So it's contradictory to make both chumras. And the Gemara says that he shouldn't. No reason to be marked with two chumras. That in general the halach is like Beis Hillel, but also Allah says Kedibur Beis Shammai also Kedibur Beis Hillel. So if you want, you could do like Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel. The Gemara says this is talking about before the Baskol went out. The Gemara contradicts the beginning and the end, not over here, but in there. When the Gemara talked about that first you say Allah is like Beis Hillel, and then you say you can do whatever you want. So the Gemara says it might be a machlokis if you hold it about Baskol or before the Baskol, or maybe it means other Tanoim that I'm around that are arguing besides Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. But Beis Hillel happens to be halachas like Beis Hillel always. But other Tanoim and Amaron, if there's no halacha, if it wasn't muchra, if it wasn't decided who you paskin like, so you could pick whoever you want to paskin like. But Mikula Beis Shammai, Mikula Beis Hillel, Russia. If you pick all the coolest, then it's in Russia. And the Gemara says over there, it's not talking about two different machlokas. And two different machlokas, you might hold like both coolest. But if you have one issue that has ramifications in two different cases, and you're going to take the coolest, so the coolest are going to be what you call the sasri, that it's not the sasri, that the two things are contradicting each other. So then Russia, because you're surely doing an avera. If you take both chumras, B'chumri Beis Shammai, B'chumri Beis Hillel, that also again the same issue that has two ramifications. One's going to be a chumra, one's going to be a kula, and you take both chumras. So then Allah because of Omer, the fool goes into the darkness because both of them are not going to be true. It's not smart to make two chumras. So the Gemara is asking here, Rabbi Akiva seems to be doing that. Rabbi Akiva, he took both chumras. He took Meiser off twice. Maybe Rosh Hashanah is the first of Shvat, maybe it's the 15th of Shvat. So the Gemara says that it's not a good thing. The Gemara says it's not a good thing to be machmer two chumras that contradict. Ella. Either be consistent. Take the Beis Shammai both for Kula and Chumrah, or take Beis Hillel for Kula and Chumrah. You can't take contradictory Chumras and contradictory Chumras, Kulas. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Akiva Gemara Yistabekle v'lo yadei Beis Hillel b'echad b'Shvat amru, or b'tis tu b'Shvat amru. It wasn't because he wanted to be machmer. He really passed like Beis Hillel. That's in the case according to the first Gersa that the question was, did he do like Beis Shammai Beis Hillel? No, for sure he was like Beis Hillel. But he didn't know. Beis Hillel is the one who says Aleph Shvat, or Beis Hillel is the one who says Tu B'Shvat. So that's not called the Ksubah Choshech. That's like a Chasaron Yediyah. If he's doing it like Beshita, he wants to be machmer two chumras, that's a foolishness. Why machmer two chumras for? But if he knows that to do like Beis Hillel, he just is being machmer because he doesn't know what Beis Hillel said, then you're not to be machmer, even contradictory chumras. So he was machmer that maybe Aleph Shvat is Rosh Hashanah, maybe Tu B'Shvat is Rosh Hashanah. The Bryce continued and said that according to the other version of Yosef Yehuda, he said that for sure he held like Beis Hillel. The question was only, is it considered a tree that you go bas chanata, or is it a vegetable you go bas salakita? But Yosef Yehuda, yes.
So the chumrah was he was like Meiser Ani and Meiser Sheni.
If that would be the case, yeah, or yes, right. That was the question. The second and third year. No, he says he picked it. Then he had two Meisers.
Two Meisers, yeah. So Meiser Ani, Meiser Sheni.
Right. There was a question between the second and the third year, or between the third and the fourth year. Right. Something between where it changes. So he did two Meisers to be also all the issues. Now, the Rabbi Yosef Yehuda said, no, it wasn't a question of B'Sham Beis Hillel. It was a question about Rabbi Gamliel or Rabbi Eliezer. If you go B'Sach Chanot, that means for sure it was after Tu B'Shvat. It was before. It was picked after Tu B'Shvat, but the Chanot was before Tu B'Shvat, and he didn't know if the esrog is considered a tree or a yerek as far as Lakita Chanata. That was the issue. This is the quotation of Rabbi Yosef Yehuda. B'Sham Beis Hillel Nagba, Elam Meneg Gamliel Rabbi Eliezer Nagba. But the Gemara is very surprised. Echad B'Shvat ke B'Shamai Nagba. But it says the story was that he picked it on the first of Shvat. On the first of Shvat, then it doesn't make a difference if you go Basa Chanat, even if you go all Lakita, because both Chanat and Lakita were before Tu B'Shvat. It seems if you say the story was he picked it on the first of Shvat, and he had an issue about Chanata before and Lakita after, that means that it's going like Bishamai, that the cutoff date is Aleph Shvat. That doesn't make sense. Am I being clear? That if he surely held that like Bishamai, it says that his question wasn't is the cutoff point the 1st of Shvat or the 15th of Shvat? The question was, you go Bas Chanata, Bas Lakita. But the story was that happened on the 1st of Shvat. He picked it on the 1st of Shvat. If you picked it on the 1st of Shvat, if you hold like Beisil, both of them are before the cutoff date because the Chanata was earlier and the Lakita was before Tu B'Shvat. So it doesn't make sense. He holds Beishamai. That's the most concept of Beishamai and Agba. I'm Rabbi Chanina, Vitem Rabbi Chananya, Alcha Be'esrog Shachon to Peros of Kodem Tu Tesvov, the Idach Shvat Askina. He says that it's very, it seems like a Dochak Teretz, that when it says he picked it on the 1st of Shvat, he could have picked it the whole year already because it had Chanata the previous Tu B'Shvat, a year, go back a year. Today on Aleph Shvat, Tov Shin Pei Beis, he picked it. But it had Chanata before Tu B'Shvat of Tov Shin Pei Aleph. So the question was, do you go Bas Chanata of Tu B'Shvat, Tov Shin Pei Aleph? And since it was before then, so it was last year, or he picked it this year. It says here the story is Aleph Shvat. Like the Gemara says, happened. What does the Gemara say? It doesn't have to be Aleph Shvat. It could have been Teves. It could have been Adar. It could have been all the days in between last Tu B'Shvat and this Shvat. It could have been any time that he picked that. He picked it after before the Chanata was before last Tu B'Shvat, and the Lakita was after last year's Tu B'Shvat. It happened to be it was Aleph Shvat. But then it happened to be that he picked an Aleph Shvat. When the Brisa says that he picked an Aleph Shvat, it's not because Aleph Shvat is something that's a demarcation for anything. It happens to be Aleph Shvat, but it really has to do with the. So it's a very interesting tree. Like Rashi says, esrog tree sometimes lasts for 2 or 3 years. The fruit could last on it. So the Chanat happened before last Tu B'Shvat, and he picked it after last year's Tu B'Shvat. It happened to be that it was Aleph Shvat. It could have been any date after last year's Tu B'Shvat. That's pretty dochak as far as the story goes, that it says that he picked it so much later and tells us Aleph Shvat. That's not again anything. But that was his answer to say that it means really Tu B'Shvat. There's another answer, Ravina Amar, like he's gonna say I have to edit it. Like according to the second mandama that says that it wasn't a question between Bishama and Beisil, it was a question about is it a tree and you go Bas Chanata, or is it a vegetable and you go Bas Lakita, also change the date. It wasn't Aleph Shvat, the story happened on Tu B'Shvat. That's Ravina Amar, like bunch it all together, combine it all together, and say following. Lo echad b'shvat haya, lo tesva b'shvat haya. First of all, he says the story didn't happen on Aleph B'Shvat, happened on Tu B'Shvat, and also lo minik b'sham v'yisil nagba, ela minik Rabbi Gamliel v'Rabbi Elazar nagba. The issue that Rabbi Kiva was machmir was not because maybe it looks like B'Shamai, but maybe the lachas like Rabbi who's that? Rabbi Gamliel that says you go Bas Lakita, and maybe or maybe you go with the Chanata or before. Do you hold like Chanata before Tu B'Shvat? Or the Lakita was on Tu B'Shvat or after Tu B'Shvat, so that has considered the new year. So what had happened over here, that Rabbi Kiva was a question about esrog being considered Chanata or Lakita. As far as Beishamai Beisil, we should hold like Beisil, that Tu B'Shvat is the date, not like we know nowadays. We don't say Tachnan on Tu B'Shvat. That's the Rosh Hashanah Lilanos. And Echad B'Shvat is not a date by us. But as far as esrog is something unique. Machlok is if it's considered a tree or vegetable as far as Meiser goes. The Gemara has one more point. That this is for tonight. One more point. The Gemara talks about now that we're saying, if we say according to the Shita that holds that esrog is considered vegetable as far as Meiser goes, and it goes with Lakita. So now there's another issue to know about esrog. How about when is the cutoff point? Means besides Chanata Lakita being a difference between a tree and a vegetable, is also what is the cutoff date? Is the cutoff date going to be Aleph Tishrei as a vegetable or as a Tu B'Shvat as a tree? Right? We said a tree is different than a vegetable on 2 points. One is that the cutoff point is a different date. It's not Aleph Tishrei, it's Tu B'Shvat. And also, what is the stage of development? That's the Koveya. By a tree, it's Chanata. By a vegetable, it's Lakita. So that's what the Gemara wants to know now, according to the Shita of Rabbi Gamliel, that says that you go with Lakita, is the cutoff point also going to be Aleph Tishrei or Tu B'Shvat? So the Gemara starts now a new sugya. Omar Rabba Barfuna Hashad Dam Rabbi Gamliel Esrog Yachal Lakita Yisuro Ki Yerek Shana Shlo Tishrei. So this first version says that Rabbi Barfuna said that Sisra Gamliel says esrog is considered a vegetable as far as that you go Bas Lakita. You don't go according to when Chanata was, but you go according to when it's picked off the tree. So if so, Rosh Hashanah Shelo Tishrei. So the Rosh Hashanah of esrog is also the cutoff point is going to be Aleph Tishrei like Yerakos, not Tu B'Shvat. But the one the Kasha from Bryce, and the Bryce says openly that it goes with Tu B'Shvat. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, it's the one line. It goes further, but this is the main point we want. Likate esrog erev Tu B'Shvat. That's the main point we need to say, that it's going to go with Lakita, and it says Tu B'Shvat. So you see that even though it's going with the esrog Basal Lakita, still the cutoff point is Tu B'Shvat. That's the kasha on Baruch Huna that just said that the cutoff point is going to be Aleph Tishrei. That's going to be the kasha now. The Brisa goes further, but that's the main kasha. What is saying the Brisa? If somebody picked off an esrog off the tree the day before Tu B'Shvat, Yudalet Shvat, Anshlo Tav Hashemesh before Shkia, because of Veliket Mishtav Hashemesh, took another esrogim, or after on Tu B'Shvat, after Shkia, ain't talking about Masu Mizal Zeh. You can't take too much of Mises from one on the other because that's last year. This is this year. The fish ain't talking about Masu Loman Chadash Aliyash, Loman Yashan Al Chadash, and the one that's before Tu B'Shvat is last year, and the one that's after Tu B'Shvat is this year, and therefore you can't be Torah Mizal Zeh. Here, so the Kasha is going to say soon is that Lakita with Tu B'Shvat. You see that it doesn't go together because Lakita is also going to be Aleph Tishrei. Agav, the Brisa continues. Besides being the din of Yashan and Chadash, it's also which Meiser is going to be. If it's going between the change of years on Meiser Sheni, Meiser Rani, so also it's going to, you have to know when the Lakita before and after. If it was the changeover, the Tu B'Shvat that changes from the third year to the fourth year, Shlishis Meiser Rishon and Meiser Rani, Revius Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni. The third year is going to be high. Every year is high as Meiser Rishon, but the third year is going to be Meiser Rani, and the fourth year is going to be back to Meiser Sheni again. So the cutoff point is to get both to know old and new, and also to know between the years of the third and the fourth. The market has said also a second and the third. That we'll say soon. Any changeover of the between the third year before and after, or the sixth year before and after. So you have to know which year it is. Is it considered Meiser Rani or Meiser Sheni? Anyway, what do you see from this brisa? The same thing we pointed out right away in the beginning, that there's a esrog that you're going with Lakita and still has Tu B'Shvat. I'm sorry, take a second test to find the right page again. Here it is, Daf Tezvav. Is that on the screen?
Yes.
I guess it's on the screen. Everybody on it? Man Shambatle. It's a little different, but Man Shambatle. Can't make it bigger. 1 second. Man Shambatle is also Basal Lakita. If it says here that you go Basal Lakita, that means Gamliel is talking that Esrog you go with Lakita. And still Katani Shvat, it says Shvat. So that's the Kasha on the one who said that since it's Lakita, you go to Aleph Tishrei. So the Gemara says, you're right, I got it wrong, and they misquoted Rabbi Baruch Huna. Ella Yitma, the right guess should be Amar Rabbi Baruch Huna, Afagav the Amar Rabbi Gamliel, Lesrigach Lakita Kiyerek, but still Rosh Hashanah Shalosh Shvat. That even though, as far as Lakita, you say that is considered a vegetable, you go with Lakita, but the Rosh Hashanah still says Tu B'Shvat.
So that's the din.
And that's what Gamliel. We have to see how we pass him like. Maybe pass like Rabbi Lezer is considered. We have to get to the halacha still.
It still has
But-
Rosh Hashanah
It's not the Rosh Hashanah
of a tree.
of a tree, even though you go with
No,
Lakita.
Lakita.
Right, something very unique. Usually you either have Chanata but Tu B'Shvat, or you have Lakita with the Aleph Tishrei. Here you have according to Gamliel, you can have an esrog that's going to be Lakita with Tu B'Shvat. One more Gemara here, a couple of lines. That's an interesting point. That it's interesting. Before we spoke about an example of changing from year of Meiser Sheni, Meiser Rani, we spoke about the changeover from the second to the third, and here we talk about the third to the fourth. Some interesting point. And the Gemara asks, why did he change the mashal? Whenever we speak about the changeover of years, so we say between the second and the third, the second would be Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, and the third one is Meiser Rishon, Meiser Rani. Here, it talked about a fancy case of the third to the fourth. It's also true, but like it's strange that the example changed. We talk about the changeover from the third to the fourth year. The third year is Meiser Rani, and the fourth year is Meiser Sheni. Why did he change? They changed the example. That's the most kasha. Ma'ishna hasam diktani Meiser Shni chesed l'shlishis. Ma'ishna diktani Meiser Shlishis chesed l'revius. Before, when we said examples of a changeover of years, we spoke about the second and the third, and then we spoke about the third and the fourth. It's true, but why change the example? So the Gemara says, Milsa Agavocha Kamashma. The Brisa wanted to tell you a side point. The esrog kashale yada, that the esrog tree is very delicate, and when people touch it, it affects it very in a detrimental way. It's bad for the tree. And on Shvius, on Shemitah year, that the fields are hefker, and people come in and they don't know how to take care of the tree, they pick the esrogim, so it ruins the tree away in a bit, and it doesn't develop fruit until the third year. You're not going to get any second year fruit. The kashale yada, the people touching the tree, is bad for the tree. Since people touch it in Shemitah, when the field is hefker, people come in and they touch the tree, so it causes that the tree shouldn't produce fruit until the third year. So you're not going to have second year fruit. The second year means second year of the Shemitah cycle. So you're not going to have it. And you don't usually have a sorghum on the second year. Now, nowadays, I think that the way they do it is that they don't want people to ruin the trees. So I think, I'm not sure I heard, that and if you have a field which is delicate, and you don't, even though you have to be after your field, you don't let them ruin the field. So you can tell them that I'll pick whatever you want, but don't touch the tree yourself. Or they might even be allowed to lock the gate and say, if you want something, so ring the bell and we'll come bring it to you. Or maybe they'll pick it out themselves and give it to people, even though usually people come in, but only in a way they're not going to ruin it. But things that are delicate, they're going to ruin it, so they don't have to. They don't have to ruin the tree because it's Shemitah. So that's why there's a case of the third and the fourth year instead of second and the third year, because there is no second year fruit. That's the end of the sugya, and that's the chazor we had. I didn't get to the halach yet. I'll try to get it for tomorrow, and I have to catch up on yesterday's daf. I want to thank my Abusa again, Pinchas. I think I noticed that he's on, and I got Yasher Koyach, and I imagine that people will like he should say this year. But we want to thank you, Pinchas, for saying yesterday's daf. After listening, we don't understand it. Oh, he went off already. Okay, just I don't know when he went off. But I voice Yasher Koyach. So today's summary was that Ein Bila by David Yobish. We don't consider things get homogenized when you mix it up, only by liquids, and by Kitnius and Zroim, the Kobeya is going to be the stage of Gemara Pri, not like the Mishnah says Ashrosha. And then there was a drush to say, how do you know that Yerokas are different? That it doesn't go with Chanata, but it goes with Lakita. There was a drush between basically and Rabbi Akiva about Meishana Shavra or Al-Rov Mayim, and Nafkamina about things that you didn't water for 30 days. Maybe it goes according to the Sug, or it goes according to the actual physical water. Is it have last year's water or not? After that, the Gemara said the reason why Tu B'Shvat is the date is because even though we had already the drasha that it goes into the next year, that was on the Yud. The Gemara said of Hashana Revius, Hashana Chamishis, but here why was Tu B'Shvat the date? Because it's just a Rov Gishmei Shana. And the Gemara points out, even if Rov Tkufas Tevis didn't come yet, it's still outside, didn't happen yet, but Rov Gishmei Shana already over. Then when they had the sugya about Rabbi Akiva that was Machmir Tu Chumris, and the Gemara says, why was he Machmir Tu Chumris? Not supposed to be Machmir. The Gemara said he knew the pasuk in one way, but he wasn't sure what Beis Hillel said. The Gemara has two versions of his Chumrah. Either was that Aleph B'Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, because he didn't know if what Beis Hillel says, or he knew that it was Tu B'Shvat, but the question was, you go Basachanot or Basalakita, like Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Gamliel. What else was the Gemara say after that? That surely he didn't, if he had no question of Hasham Beis Hillel, because he held Tu B'Shvat, not that he held Aleph B'Shvat, either talking about last year's Tu B'Shvat or change the gears and say that he argues over here on Tu B'Shvat also. The last Gemara was that if you do hold like Rabbi Gamliel, that Maisa goes with Lakita, does it also change the cutoff date? And that the Gemara says no. Proof from Rabbi said even though the cutoff date, even though you go Basa Lakita, the cutoff date is still Tu B'Shvat. And the last Gemara on the top was a side, nice point, nice information to know that an esrog tree is very delicate and don't touch it. If you touch it, it won't produce berries. And usually on the second year of Shemitah, since people do touch it on Shemitah, so then it's not going to produce anything. So when I wanted to give an example about changeover from a year of Ma'aseh and Ma'aseh Sheni, it didn't pick the second and third year, it picked the third and the fourth year. Yasher Koach. Thank you.
Shavua Tov, thank you.
Shavua Tov. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Cultivate everybody. Shavua Tov.